Hello, and welcome back to another Aduro Learning Facebook Live. Today, I am joined by my colleagues, Chrissy and Jeff, to talk a little bit more about coaching, but to get all three of our perspectives. My name is Kim Cafino, and I'm really excited to be talking to you guys with my colleagues about how to have a coaching conversation. So I'm going to get both those guys to just say hello real quick and give a little intro to their experience with coaching, and then we'll get started on how to have a coaching conversation. Chrissy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Hellier, and I have been a technology learning coach for a few years. So I'm really excited about talking about how to have a coaching conversation with you all today.
And Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jeff Udick, and I was a learning coach for, I think, total of 6 years. Yeah.
So all of us have had the opportunity to have coaching conversations. And one of the questions that we get the most at Aduro Learning is like, how do you have an effective coaching conversation? How do you make sure that conversation goes kind of the way you want it? The teacher feels supported, but you're also getting that outcome of improved student learning. So we know there's lots of kind of tips and tricks and strategies that we can use in a coaching conversation that makes one really successful for both the coach and the teacher. And since the three of us have had lots of experience in that area, we thought it would be worthwhile sharing.
Sounds good.
Who wants to go first?
I guess I can go first. I was just thinking, as you were introducing it, like, what is the strategy? And I think for me, one of the things that I liked, it was being able to to set the groundwork for a conversation, to make sure that we're both understanding what the learning outcome is we want to focus on. Is that we need to understand what is it that we want students to learn, what is the outcome, and that we're both on the same page. Because there's nothing worse than starting down a path and then realizing, oh, I thought we wanted kids to do A and you thought we wanted kids to do B. And now we're at this crossroads and having to try to figure out where we go from there. So I think starting a conversation of just understanding, what is the enduring understanding or the essential question, or however you're framing your unit or the coaching conversation, making sure that we're all on the same page of where we're starting from. I think that really helps to set the foundation then for the next steps in a conversation.
I totally agree. And I think that's like every time I start a coaching conversation, my first question is, what would you like students to know and be able to do? And I think that's such a telling question, because sometimes if a teacher can't answer that question, that's a great additional conversation that you can have, because maybe they've always been doing this unit in this certain way and it works just fine, or maybe they hate it, who knows? But then that can kind of identify really what are your goals to make sure that you're on the same page.
Yeah. And I think it also helps, because all three of us, obviously we're tech coaches, and we've all been in that, I think that place where you're trying to coach someone and, they went to a conference and they came home with the coolest new app and they come running into you and they're so excited because they're like, I learned about blogging and I want to blog with my kids tomorrow. And I think it helps to start that conversation if you can take a step back and say, okay, I'm excited about blogging too, but what's the student learning? What's that outcome? Let's start there, and then make sure blogging is the right platform moving forward. Because there's nothing worse than picking the wrong platform tech-wise at the beginning to realize that that's really not going to hit your outcome down the road.
Absolutely. Chrissy, what are your thoughts?
I think probably the strategy that worked best for me was just to listen, to allow the person that you're working with to talk and get it all out. And it can be very, very hard sometimes to not want to jump in and offer some advice or suggest a tool. But I think it's really, really important to just listen for a while. And I would go so far as to say that probably the majority of your conversation should not be you talking. It should be the person that you're working with. It should be them talking. So that's a big one for me. Just listen. Listen for a while before you're tempted to jump in and say anything else.
And there's that cheesy phrase, like, be an active listener. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. A lot of times we get caught up in thinking about what we're going to say in response to whatever it is the teacher is saying, and then you're not actively listening anymore. And so one of the strategies that has come up in a lot of conversations about coaching through all the work that we've been doing is this idea of paraphrasing what the teacher says so that they know that you're actively listening, and so that you can confirm that what your understanding of what they're saying is actually what they mean. So while you're active listening, you're able to kind of paraphrase back what the teacher said, so everybody's, again, on that same page.
I think a good strategy to that is I was listening to another podcast where they were actually interviewing a FBI negotiator, and he was talking about negotiation tactics. And that was a big part of it, is this idea of active listening. And so what they call it mirroring, where when you get done having a conversation or the person's talking, if you just repeat the last 2 or 3 words the person said, that A, lets them know that you were listening, and B, they continue to tell you information, right? And so it's a way of making sure you're active listening, because now you're engaged, thinking, okay, I need to know what are the 2 or 3 key words that I can just repeat back to them so they know I'm listening and they keep talking. It's an amazing strategy that if you can work on it, it's incredible. I've started using it with a couple teachers and with my wife, and it works really, really well.
Now, in all of those contexts, we don't want to be feeling like an FBI investigator, but it's good to know that that's a very quick trick that works.
Oh, I've got another little quick trick that works really well too, because sometimes when you're trying to be the active listener, the person that you're working with or having a conversation with can often run out of things to say. And a nice little thing to try to say is, and what else? Like, don't say anything else, just say those words, and you will be really surprised at how much more you will get out of that person. It's unbelievable. So give that a go as well. And what else?
I have a couple more things I want to share, but I don't want to like steal away all of the great things that are coming. We're working on right now a YouTube series called Coaching Fundamentals. And this is one of the questions that we've asked 12 really experienced coaches. And so I don't want to give away all of their great tips, but one of the things I do want to highlight that came out in that conversation is having a successful coaching conversation and coaching relationship relies on the person you're coaching knowing that you're not evaluating them. And the takeaway, a key takeaway for me of that like conversation that I had with lots of different people, is I tend to be a bit of a cheerleader. I like to say, oh, that's great, or I'm so excited about that, or that sounds awesome. But even when we're giving positive feedback, in essence, we're evaluating, we're saying that that's good. So a skill for me personally to work on, and that is always something I need to work on, is working on non-evaluatory language and kind of just focusing on the student learning and not qualifying, even if it's great and you want to be positive and be that cheerleader because that's why you got into the field in the first place. Like, how do you take out that evaluation piece so teachers don't feel like if you're not saying it's amazing, you're thinking it's not great, because that's kind of the subtext that can happen.
That's real food for thought.
I know, right? Not easy.
Yeah, not easy at all, because I'm the same.
Yeah. And after I had that conversation, it was with Patrick Green. I had a bunch of other interviews lined up for the rest of the day. And it was so hard for me not to say, oh, what a great point. I did really try to think about non-evaluatory language. And in that case, it didn't really matter. But when working with teachers, I think it is important that they know you're on their side. And it's not about what they're doing right versus what they're doing wrong. It's about improving student learning. And the language that we use has an impact on their perception of what you think about them.
Yeah, so please put in your comments about any non-evaluatory, I can't even say that word, evaluative language that you might be using, because then that would be really great for all of us to share and learn.
Absolutely.
And I think, you talk a lot with coaching strategies too, just about, the idea of forming that bond with a teacher. And one thing that always worked with me is be like, I don't know if this will work, but I'm willing to try it with you. I think helps to get you out of that evaluative role of like, I've never done this before, so let's do this together and see what happens. I think that allows, teachers feel like there's somebody willing to take the blame if it fails, to fail their kids, but if there's somebody else there that's like, this looks really cool, I've never done this before, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, let's do this together. You kind of help to shoulder that mutual responsibility and get you out of like, I'm not evaluating on this, I'm in this with you. And if it works, we're both going to celebrate. And if it doesn't work, we both get to not celebrate, right? And we both get to be in that together. And anytime you can form that kind of, I think, again, that kind of relationship speak of, ooh, let's try this together. And I've never done this before, or this is a crazy idea, I love it. Builds that, I think, also using that type of language, kind of putting you in it with them, so that they know that you are supporting them fully in whatever it is you're working on. So
It's that idea of being a team. The coach and the teacher they're
Mm.
working with are a partnership.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
I think those were 3 solid tips. Chrissy, did I interrupt you? Do you want to say something?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So I think those were 3 solid tips we can all kind of work on as coaches in improving our practice. The first one is making sure that we know what the end goal is, what we want students to know and be able to do at the end of the unit, so we're all on the same page. The second one is being an active listener and really focusing on what the other teacher is saying by paraphrasing after to ensure that you've kind of got clarity. And then the third one is thinking about the language that you use when you talk to teachers and making sure that you're not evaluating what they're doing, but that you're building that relationship of being a team and we're on the same side and we're working together and I'm not judging you, basically. So we're really excited to be sharing all these coaching tips with you as part of the Coach micro-credential that's launching in April. So please keep an eye out for all the great coaching stuff that's coming from the Eduro Learning team. You can check it out on edurolearning.com and keep your eyes peeled for an awesome flash sale coming this week on our new course, How to Have a Coaching Conversation. See you next time.